Hello, welcome to this second short presentation related to concepts of team building, and this is from inclusivity. So the concepts of team building, if you recall, we had two teams in class, and we designed and presented two memory techniques to each of the teams, and we looked at the dynamics of team building, team structure, as we went through those particular classroom activities. So the aims of the session were to establish a definition of team, to consider why an appreciation of team building is important to you, particularly as a health and social care practitioner, if you like, whichever role you're going to go into. Why would an appreciation of team building, team structure, team dynamics be important to you? And we designed a mission statement, and the mission statement wasn't really to identify the good points of the mission statement. It was just to show you one way we could actually direct and focus a team's perception of itself, really, as we move forward. I'm not saying it's good or bad, but it's just one way you can use a tool to drive the team forward. We practice the art of team building, and I call it art because it is an art form in itself, and we discuss this in many ways in class, if you recall. Two collaborative team members completing one another is more important than competing with one another. Let's get that right. With an enthusiastic team, you can achieve almost anything. Now, you can get lots of quotes and references and things like that from YouTube and websites and research on team dynamics, team building, etc. So you can do some of that study, particularly if you're going to use an essay that and use a subject in terms of your essay, particularly as you're looking at teams and teams you will encounter when on your placements. So team building and inclusivity and this particular program, why is it really important? You have to keep that link there. As we're talking about team building, as you do that, looking at research behind team building, look at some of the papers on Blackboard, which I'll pop on there, and keep linking it to inclusivity. Why is it important in terms of inclusivity? Think about the session that we did on overview of inclusivity in the previous recording that you've seen. Inclusivity, and what is it? How do team dynamics affect inclusivity and exclusivity, and then related to health and social care and this particular program you're on, and the people you'll encounter on this program, whether it's children, adults, elderly, whoever it is. There's always a team aspect and a dynamic within groups of people, a dynamic that's really, really interesting when you can analyze exactly what's occurring, how the dynamics evolve within a team, and we discussed this in class, if you recall. It's important we've got a full understanding of the dynamics of the team concept. And think about your career and how many teams you'll encounter, as I mentioned before. So you're going to go through this career, which will be wonderful and exciting. How many teams will you encounter during this whole process? All the different types of people you're going to come into contact with. And we discussed what we mean by team in class. You know, it could be a group of people, a small group, a large group. Using the term team is probably a misnomer in some way. So you need to think team, groups, how they all work together. How many will you encounter then? You know, so you could look at families and children and classrooms, and the program you're on now is a team, the teaching team that are associated to that program, the university team, the school that you work in, the social services unit that you work in. You know, all these have teams within teams, and it's really interesting to watch the dynamics, how that evolves. And we discussed the dynamics of teams when we talked about how your group in particular had evolved from year one when you first started in those early days when you didn't know each other. You were all in separate groups, you didn't know what to say to each other, and how's that evolved now? So you're in year 3. So how different are you how different is this group than when you first started in those early days in year 1, for example? Before we can look at the concepts of team building, we need to establish what we understand as a team then. So what do you understand as a team, a group? And what are the dynamics involved? First, a reminder of the learning outcomes of this module, and drag out of this because you've got to keep it focused. Although we're talking about teams and concepts and groups, you've got to keep really focused on exactly why you're doing this. Yes, you're going to enhance your own practice, your own skills, but you want to drag out information that relates to inclusivity in your assignment. So we're going to analyse the effectiveness of our own communication skills in relation to working individually and within groups. So this is what we're talking about here. Critically evaluate the effectiveness of service delivery and social policy relating to individuals, families and communities. Again, think about teams within those units, if you like. And critically analyse the dynamics and impact of policy responses to poverty and financial exclusion and lower income communities. So those particular groups and teams within those groups. I could replace the term teams with groups. Understand theoretical and practical approaches to personal finance education in low income communities, including developing financial capability in young people. So young people in that particular group and the groups that you will encounter, how do they work together? How do they function as a group? In these 4 learning outcomes here, there are groups and the teams within them. How do they all function and interrelate? So what makes this team what it is, as in you, as a class? What makes it as it is? What makes you a team? What makes you a group of people that's quite unique than any other group in the university, any other group anywhere? You are unique. And what makes you unique? So ask yourself that and work on that concept. And then you can expand that and look at the teams that you're working with in practice and the teams that you encounter. You'll be able to look at the dynamics involved and what makes that team a team. What are the boundaries of that group? Who goes past those boundaries? Who stays within the boundaries? Who's the leader? Who's the chairperson? Who's the person that gets things done? Think about the dynamics of the team. Put up a few words here now. So common unified goals you could have. You must have an aim as a team, perhaps. You must have an objective, whether you know it, whether it's out there and you're all absolutely clear what the aims and objectives are, or are they more subtle? What's the mission? We talked about the mission before. There must be a leader within there. Maybe there's a couple of leaders. Maybe there's a bit of conflict in there with the leadership structure. There might be a leadership structure within the team that associates with the cliques and subgroups, sub-teams. There are always followers within that group, people who follow that lead, follow the lead, follow just people who blend into that team. There's always different types of people within every team. Who's the fun? Where's the fun? How does this team function? There must be fun and a bit of a laugh within any team to function appropriately. Humour. There must be a supportive nature. You'll have this storming phase, a norming phase. There must be some fight. Often teams can bind together. We discussed these in class. They can bind together by some unified approach, something that's upset the team, upset the apple cart, if you like. So how and what is this, and how can a team that just ticks along nicely, maybe have their own little groups within the team, can suddenly bind together with one focus, unite together with one focus. This can create dynamism. Dynamism? It can become dynamic. So the team is dynamic. And think about that in the opposite way as well. You could have a lack of dynamism. there must be some cohesion, and by definition, if there's some cohesion, there could be a lack of cohesion. So think of it. Think of these points in both ways. Some vigour to the group, a validity of the group. Why are you there? What's your function? What's your aim? What's your mission? The existence of the group. Why did it exist in the first place? So historical aspects. What brings the team together? And there's always a survival instinct within the team, with any group. And this instinct is there that makes you bond together. And sometimes it's human nature and it's belongingness that we talked about in previous sessions. So we created a mission statement, and you recall the three groups created their own. I'll put those on Blackboard so you can actually see them. So you created keywords and then you created a statement, what you thought this group, your group, was all about. So we did an exercise, if you remember, to design 2 memory tools that individuals within the team can use for the rest of their life. So we designed those 2 memory tools, and they related around the Roman room and the PEG system for memory techniques. And you, as a group, 2 groups, took that on board, and very, very good it was too. Now think about how you felt during that exercise. I wasn't really interested in the exercises succeeding or not. Obviously, I was more interested in how quickly you could adapt and create this presentation in such a short time and present it to the other group and see how they reacted. Now, it was a bit crude and a bit fast and a bit rapid, but it was really, really interesting when you look at the group. Think back now how you felt. Think who engaged in the group activity. How did group 1 do? How did group 2 do? Who felt the most uncomfortable? Who didn't want to engage? Who couldn't see the point in it? Who wanted to lead it? Who was the most dynamic? Who wanted it to succeed? Who wanted it to be enjoyable? So all of these aspects could be looked at in terms of group dynamics. So whatever you felt about this exercise, or however you felt about taking part, that in itself should inform you and enlighten you into how people feel in terms of groups that you encounter. So you should have a better awareness of how these dynamics work in teams. And if you've got a better awareness, you're going to be a better communicator, which is a session we look at next week, or the next online session. What concepts have we used during this exercise then? We just talked about a few. In terms of individuals, families and children, how important is it that you appreciate the effects of inclusivity and the dynamics of teams? Well, I would suggest that it's very important, extremely important, that you understand that, and obviously you do, but it's really something you can think about and research and study and look at in terms of you becoming a really good communicator, in terms of you becoming a really good team player, and in terms of you finding your position and place within a group. Okay.